Hello, good morning, guys. Welcome to the LFC Journal. I'm OW James. This is your channel. This is your fan channel, guys. We are an independent fan channel. We don't charge you for content. We're not beholden to anybody. Look, we're never going to charge you. We're not going to have pay tiers. We're not going to say, well, you've got to give us a certain amount of money if you want to watch certain content. And the other thing we'll always do here on the channel is we'll always kind of say to you, look, we'll speak our mind, we'll tell you the truth when it comes to situations. So obviously, please keep on checking out the channel. Please obviously keep on subscribing as we're on our journey to build this channel. We know it's going to be tough. There's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of content out there. We just need obviously your support to help us to continue to grow. We're up to 121 subscribers now to the channel. We've had some decent responses to some of the videos we've put out in the last few days, weeks, etc. Olivia, good morning. How are you? I'm good. Olivia. Hope you're well as well. Olivia says Semenyo scores again. Liverpool have made a huge mistake there. Whoever is to blame has massive questions to answer. Yeah, I've got to say I did see that last night. I did see Antoine Semenyo score again for Manchester City in their 2-0 victory over Newcastle United. I've got to say, for me, it is a mistake not signing Antoine Semenyo. I think he could have brought a lot to this team. I think he could have added to this team, and I think Liverpool are really lacking in wide positions at this moment in time. Now, I did read a comment the other day from Arne Slot, and look, I don't want to particularly get into Slot bashing or the debate on Arne Slot's future on this channel now. Look, we'll talk about Slot, I'm sure, in the run-up to the Burnley game and, after the Burnley game. But one of the things that I did read the other day was that Slot says he likes to play with wingers. He likes to use wingers. And we haven't got any wingers. I mean, realistically, who is an out-and-out winger at Liverpool now? Who would you say, if I asked you to put your money where your mouth is and say, we have who as an out-and-out winger? Well, Rio Ngamoa obviously would be the first name that would spring to mind, but Rio doesn't obviously play regular football. He's not a player who is regularly out there, regularly playing in the first 11. He played obviously against Barnsley, but he's a 17-year-old kid, 18-year-old kid still learning his trade. So, Rio Ngamoa. Federico Chiesa, for me, is not an out-and-out winger. Cody Gakpo is not an out-and-out winger, even though Cody Gakpo plays on the left-hand side and says he prefers to play on that left-hand side. He's not an out-and-out winger. And Cody, Cody has been absolutely awful this season. I mean, he really genuinely has been absolutely diabolical this season. And look, I'm a big fan of Cody's. I love Cody. I think, last season he really did give us a lot, didn't he? But I think what's changed from Cody from last season to this season is Luis Diaz not been here. I think, and I'm not gonna sit here this morning and say we should have kept Luis Diaz. What I'm saying is, when Diaz was here, at least Cody had somebody pushing him. At least there was someone, he knew that there was someone there to take his place, to take his shirt, to put him out of the first team. Whereas now he looks at the situation and I think he looks at it and goes, well, realistically, there's nobody. Florian Wirtz does play there, but he's a 10. Rio Ngamoa isn't going to play. Federico Chiesa isn't going to play. Yes, there might be a possibility, had Alexander Isak still been fit, of perhaps Ekitike playing out there, but Ekitike is not a winger. So, I think Cody has kind of slipped into easy street a little bit this season. And I'll be honest with you, he looks one-dimensional. He just looks off the pace. And I'll be honest with you, Cody on the other night against Barnsley on Monday night was absolutely awful. He was genuinely diabolical. Really poor. Really, really poor. So, he is one of Arne's favourites. We know that. A lot of people joke that he's Arne's son, but he is one of Arne's favourites, and he can bring goals and assists. Of course he can, but some of his other stats are pretty poor this season. I mean, he's in the 29th percentile for progressive passes and passes into the final third. He's in the lower percentile. I think it's about 27, 28. I can't remember off the top of my head, for creating chances. So he isn't doing great this season, and he's not playing great this season. So, and he's, like I said, he's not an out-and-out winger. And that, like I said, beyond that, like I said, Mo Salah's not an out-and-out winger. Not anymore. He hasn't got the pace to go past people as he used to. He hasn't got the pace to do what he used to. So, and I hope Mo comes back and is a tremendous success. Of course I do. I hope Mo comes back and however long he's still at Liverpool, can get back to somewhere close to what he achieved last season. Of course I do. I don't think he will. Father Time is undefeated, and I wish Mo and Egypt all the very best today in their semi-final of the AFCON. I hope Egypt win it. But look, I think, there are no out-and-out wingers at the club. Now, Antoine Semenyo, for me, would have been one of those possible out-and-out wingers that Liverpool could have brought in that could have made a big difference going forward. And to me, not signing Antoine Semenyo is a huge error by Liverpool and a huge error by the club. It is something that Liverpool should have done. It's not even up for debate in what I believe. I think, you're looking at what he's doing at Manchester City. You're looking at the fact that this is a guy who can play both sides. He's direct. He's fast. He can go at people. He can go round people. He can score goals. He can create chances. I honestly believe that, he should have been someone that Liverpool signed. And I think, it's been spoken about by a lot of people, hasn't it? That had Liverpool actually acted, had Liverpool actually matched the wages or matched the terms of the deal that eventually brought Antoine Semenyo to Liverpool, to Manchester City, he would have come to Liverpool. A lot of people are saying that he actually favoured a move to Liverpool over a move to Manchester City. So, look, for me, it is a mistake, and I agree with you, Olivia. It is a mistake not to bring him. And like I said, going back to what kind of, not only Olivia's comment, but what I said at the start, that Slot says he likes to play with wingers, that he wants wingers in his team, that maybe that kind of explains the dull, boring, turgid football that we're watching at this moment in time, the slow build-up, the predictable build-up that we're seeing at this time, the struggle to unlock the low block, the struggle to beat teams that we should be easily beating. He hasn't got those options out wide. That could partly explain it. I'm not saying it wholly explains it, but it could partly explain it. We do need, I think, wingers. Liverpool do need wingers. We do need to bring some wingers in. So I'd be interested to know your thoughts, guys, watching. Who would you look at? I think realistically, we're not going to bring anybody in January. And I think there's a whole host of reasons for that. And we'll talk a little bit about that on this podcast. But, to me, wingers and having wingers is vital. If we're going to see exciting attacking football again at Liverpool, we need those options. And I think the problem we've got is we don't have them. There is no one out there, like I said, other than perhaps Rio Gamoa, who isn't going to start every game, who you would say is an out-and-out winger. Because as I said, Chiesa isn't, Gakpo isn't, Salah isn't. Frimpong is a wing back. He's not an out-and-out winger. Yes, Jeremy Frimpong has done very well when he's played on that right side, but he's not the answer. He's okay. He's not a great winger. He's not a top level winger. He can do a job out there, but, should Liverpool be relying on someone doing a job? I don't know. Let me know in the live chat what you think, guys. Obviously, please remember to smash a like on the video, and please remember, of course, to subscribe to the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Obviously, help the channel to grow and keep on growing. So yeah, I agree, on Semenyo, and I think we do need to bring in wingers. Now, look, we're in the midst of this January transfer window. And at this moment in time, we're up to the 14th. We're nearly halfway through the month of January, a month that seems to be taking bloody forever to get going. Look, the old joke, isn't it? The old joke is that January is 2 months in one. Is to me feeling very, very true at this moment in time. With the fact that it is dragging. But, it seems to me that there's a lot of rumour. There's an awful lot of rumour in the press. There's a lot of stories, counter stories about players coming, players not coming, signings coming in, signings not coming in. So we've read a lot. There has been links to Mark Gay in January. There's been links to Yan Diamonde, links to Keith Smith this morning, links to, links to Semenyo, obviously, that have now obviously died a death because of that. Links to Reyerson, I think, was one that came up in recent times as well. The whole situation is really weird. I think, look, a lot of us sit here and we look at what's happening at the club, and we look at certain areas of the club, and we really feel that they need to be strengthened. That this January transfer window is an opportunity for Richard Hughes, for Michael Edwards, to go out there and bring in players to strengthen those areas that are still badly under strength. I look, for example, at the centre back room. People talk about, we've got this number of centre backs, but realistically, to me, the centre-back room is an area that we do need to address. And I think any fan sitting there this morning and saying, we don't need a centre-back, he's living a little bit in cloud cuckoo land. Really is. Ibu Konate, for example, looks like, according to David Ornstein, that he will be leaving at the end of the season. Now, if it is a fact that Ibu is going to go, then you're going to look at a situation where, as we get closer to the end of the season, he's going to down tools even more, because he's not going to want to risk an injury. He's not going to want to risk any big money move to a foreign club or to any club. Who's going to pay him on a nice big fat signing on bonus. So you can see a situation where Konate is going to be even more off it than he has been. And let's face it, as I said on the video yesterday, Konate has been all over the place this year. He really has. Yes, he's had his good games against Arsenal, but he's also had his absolutely shocking games where even the manager has said, he's often at the scene of the crime. So he's all over the place at this moment in time. Joe Gomez was absolutely awful against Barnsley. And, Joey is... And I love Joey Gomez to bits. Honestly, if Joe Gomez could have stayed fit across his Liverpool career, I believe that Joe Gomez would have formed the centre-half pairing with Virgil van Dijk. Because Joe Gomez is a class act. He's a quality footballer. He's probably one of the best defenders at the club. He's one of the best defenders in the Premier League, but he cannot stay fit. He just cannot stay fit. His body won't allow it. We're relying on a player who is not always 100% reliable, who is not always 100% available. And, there's a saying, isn't there, in sport, your best ability is your availability. He ain't got the availability. He's often not there. So, that's one that is a big concern. Now, you then go to Virgil van Dijk. Virgil van Dijk is getting older. He's done well this season, don't get me wrong, but he hasn't been great this season. He certainly hasn't been at the level he has been in previous seasons. And as I've said, on the channel with a number of videos about Mo and about Virgil, Father Time is undefeated. Virgil can't play every single game. He needs resting. And if you don't rest him, then you're going to risk injuring him. Now, if Virgil goes down injured, what the hell do we do then? Do you really want a situation where you're going to depend on Gomez and Konate? Well, then, like I said to you, Gomez can't play 3 games a week, where we're going to have that in Champions League. So you're then going to have to look at possibly playing Endo there, or possibly playing Grav there, or possibly playing Robbo there, which to me is not the answer. Long term, you cannot have Endo at centre half. You cannot have Grav at centre half. You cannot have Robbo at centre half. So then you're looking at the kids, the Luckies, the Narlos of this world, and Slot won't do that. So there's a big worry there. Now, Giovanni Leone, obviously, I think would have played a part this season. I think as young as he is showing himself in the limited sample size we've seen from him that he's a fantastic footballer. And I think he will go on to be one of the top defenders in world football. But he is out injured until next season. So you've automatically got a problem there. Now, Liverpool apparently didn't sign Joel Ordonez because they didn't want another young defender, up-and-coming defender, on the books. They said that basically they had Giovanni Leone. As far as they were concerned, he was that young up-and-coming defender, so they didn't need another one. So that's why Joel Ordonez wasn't signed. But to me, that area is still very weak. Now, we could actually get to the end of this season where, Virgil obviously will probably be here next season. Joe Gomez is likely, I think, to leave in the summer. Ibu Konate is likely to leave in the summer. And then you've got Leone and Van Dijk as your only 2 options. Well, Van Dijk, obviously, like I said, is not getting any younger. Leone is still learning the game. He's a kid. He's not got Premier League experience. That's going to take time. So we're going to need possibly 2 centre-halves in the summer if we don't get one in January. I do believe that there is a pressing need to get that centre-half in. Now, one of the big pressing needs for me is to go after Mark Gahey. Now, Gahey, obviously, I know is available for free in the summer, and I think the club do prefer to get Gahey in the summer. I do think that they really want to bring Mark Gahey in the summer for free, and I think that is their preferred option. But there's so many stories around at the moment, and you look, yes, I get you've got to take every single situation, with these stories as a little bit of a pinch of salt. Of course you do. The media make stuff up. The media know if they tweet about Liverpool or they write stories about Liverpool, they're going to get people to click because Liverpool is big news. It's a massive worldwide club. But Gahey for me is a must because there is a massive danger, that we could actually miss out on him. There really is. There's a situation where there's obviously, Arsenal now apparently are interested. I don't get why he would go to Arsenal. They've got Gabriel, they've got Saliba. He isn't going to realistically start every single game there. So that's something that I know that Mark Gahey likes, but obviously regular starting football, he isn't going to get that at Arsenal. So to me, a move to Arsenal would make absolutely zero sense. The big threat for me obviously comes from foreign clubs, but also from Manchester City. Now, Manchester City are looking for centre backs in this window. They've lost Guardiola, they've lost Diaz, and I think it's well known that Guardiola wants to replace them, that he wants to bring in somebody who can replace those two, and Mark Gahey is a big part of that. Now, I think there will be a Manchester City bid for Mark Gahey in this window. Don't get me wrong. I think there will be. I think they will move for him. It's whether or not Mark Gahey wants to move. That's the big situation there. He is becoming one of the most talked about transfer targets. Massively becoming one of the biggest transfer targets of this window. Now, Manchester City apparently are preparing an offer for the player. They want to obviously, like I said, supplement the Semenyo buy, and they've shown in past seasons that they're willing to spend the money. They're willing to bring in players. Bayern Munich also apparently very much up on wanting Gahey too. But the latest thing that's coming out as regards Gahey to Manchester City, which TalkSport are reporting this morning, saying that basically Man City have got a real hard on for him. They said he's a serious target for Manchester City following the injury to Diaz and Guardiola. Even though they're resigned to losing their skipper when his contract expires in the summer, Palace's asking price for January has been set at north of 35 million. It's unlikely City will go that high for a player they can snare for nothing at the end of the season, but TalkSport understands Sporting Director Hugo Viana is prepared to make an offer between now and the window closing. We know that we came close, obviously Liverpool came close in the summer to getting him, but it all fell apart when Glasner blocked the move and then Steve Parish pulled the plug on it. It's believed that Manchester City don't see any package as prohibitive. The wage that apparently Gahey wants is around £200,000 a week. Manchester City see that as easy for them. And a possible situation for them. So, look, the worry is that Manchester City come in, they get the drop. Now, the counter story, of course, is that Gahey is prepared to stay at Palace until the end of the season, that he doesn't want to move in the season, that he doesn't want to risk his England place, which you've got to kind of hope is true. I still think that no matter what, even if he doesn't go to City in January, there is going to be one hell of a battle to get him to Liverpool in the summer. Now, we can talk all we want about gentlemen's agreements, and people can talk about the fact that, basically there's a done deal here, that Liverpool will sign Gahey no matter what. I don't think that's the case. I think, you've got Bayern Munich in there, Madrid in there, Man City in there, Arsenal in there, Liverpool possibly obviously going to come in there as well. It turns into a bidding war. So it is kind of a situation where you've got, Gahey is going to move, but when is it going to happen? And I am worried that Liverpool miss out on him. And I think, Sam Webby says in the chat, missing out on Gahey would be criminal. I agree. I think it would be negligence, and Richard Hughes would have to have big questions asked about the job that he is currently doing at Liverpool if we do miss out on Mark Gahey. Now, look, if Gahey isn't a possible, then you've got to start looking at other options and other targets. And I think if Liverpool come out of this window with no centre-back signed, now I know we've signed Ndiaye and that other Austrian kid, but that's for the future. That's not for now. And look, we ain't going to see Nalo, we ain't going to see Lucky, we ain't going to see any of these kids in the first team because, one, they're not ready, and two, we know Arne Slot doesn't trust young players, so it's not going to happen. So, to me, a centre-back is an absolute must. And I think if Liverpool don't buy a centre-back between now and I think it's February the 2nd, the window closes, you've got to start to ask questions. Are they giving up on this season? Are they believing that seriously that Endo, that Robbo, that Grav can play there if needs be? It's a big concern for me. It's a massive worry for me. You're putting all your eggs in two baskets, basically. You're saying that basically you're relying on Virgil and Ibu to get you through to the end of the season. You're relying on those two to be the centre-back pairing going forward. And like I said, you can't rely on Gomez, and Leone's out for the season. So, to me, the failure to buy a centre-back in this window would be just absolutely criminal from Liverpool. It really, really would. So, it's something they do need to address. It's something they badly need to address. Now, there's been stories about, obviously, the Yan Diamonde. That's another one that's been talked about. To me, that would be an easy signing this January transfer window. This is a lad who's come out and said, basically, I want to be a Liverpool player. I want to sign for Liverpool. It was my dad's dream. It's my dream. I want to play at Anfield. I want to be a Liverpool player. Yet we don't seem to want to sign him. And again, I think that is perhaps one that's being left for the summer. So again, it's another player who would fill a need. We've missed out on Semenyo, which to me is massive. Now Diamonde, obviously, he's basically saying to Liverpool, come and get me, I want to play for you. And it appears that the club aren't making any attempts to bring him in. Now, I honestly think that if Liverpool come out of this window with no centre-back, with no winger, then you've got to ask questions about what are the true aims for this season. Now, you've heard a lot of fans in the last sort of month or so talk about this being a transitional season, talk about this being a season of change, talk about this being a season where Liverpool are looking to, try and build something for next year. But to me, that was never what this season was about. If you go back to the start of the season, guys, and you look at what Richard Hughes, Michael Edwards, Arne Slot actually said about the start of this season, they said it was about dominating on all four levels, in all four competitions. It was about building a team to dominate in all four competitions, a team to win this season. And look, we're out of the League Cup now. Realistically, the title race is over. We're 14 points behind Arsenal. And look, as much as I hope that Arsenal don't win the league, I can't see them losing 5 games between now and the end of the season. Liverpool going unbeaten and catching them. I just don't see it happening. So, realistically, the league's gone. Yes, the FA Cup is still an option. And, we all know that on any given day in the FA Cup, anybody can beat anybody. So, the FA Cup obviously is something that I think that Liverpool will be looking at, hopefully. And Arne Slot will not just fuck it off and throw it away the same way that he's done with the League Cup. The Champions League is obviously still on. Now, realistically, do I think we can win the Champions League? No, I don't. I don't think we've got the depth of squad. I don't think we've got the players in the right form at the moment. We haven't got the right manager to go in and win the Champions League. So, I think your Champions League win is going to come from one of Arsenal, Man City, Inter Milan, Real Madrid, Barcelona, someone like that, Bayern Munich. That's where your Champions League win is going to come from. So, realistically, I don't believe that that's an option. Now, what we've kind of seen with this situation in January, where it's going to be a window where Liverpool allegedly do not strengthen, is this raising wider questions about the direction of the club in terms of where they intend to be in 6 months' time, in terms of leadership at the club. If January is a window where, as David Ornstein has reported, and it's not just David Ornstein, it's Lewis Steele as well, all saying that Liverpool don't intend this to be a busy window. They intend to be a very quiet window. And then David Ornstein the other day saying basically, don't expect Liverpool to splash the cash. Don't expect them to replace the centre back or the right back, or don't expect them to replace Alexander Isak in this window. We were also told as well that Calvin Ramsey is going to stay at the club now and be cover at right back. Now, whether Calvin plays or Calvin doesn't play, who knows? But I think there is a real concern there that there is literally going to be no business done in this window, which, as I've said, and I've said it, I'll say it again, I'll say it again, I'll say it until I'm blue in the face, is a mistake. Liverpool do need a winger. They do need a centre-back in this window minimum, I think, if we're going to take the rest of the season seriously. One of the things to me that is really lacking in this squad is strength in depth. You look at Arsenal's squad, you look at Man City's squad, you look at Villa's squad to some extent as well, and there is more strength in depth in those squads. Chelsea's squad even is stronger than ours. You look beyond our starting 11 and we have a very small squad with very little depth to it, especially with the injuries we currently have. Alisson obviously is an outstanding goalkeeper. Giorgio Mammalashvili, to me, the jury is still out on Mammalashvili. He is a downgrade for me on Kelleher. Frimpong is now the starting right back effectively. Calvin Ramsey is his backup. We'll use him. You've got Konate and Virgil as centre backs. You've realistically got nothing behind those two. Left back is perhaps the one area where we are strong with Kirkes and Robertson. 6, we've got Grav, but no other 6 behind Grav, with obviously Bajetic been injured again. So again, who plays there? Sobbo, Maka, Jones. You've got a little bit of depth in there. Wirtz. So there's a little bit of depth in the midfield. The midfield, I think, it is fairly strong. The front 6, you've got obviously Salah, Gakpo, Isak, Ekitike, Rio and Gamoa, and Chiesa. Well, realistically, out of those 6, you've got 4, because the manager doesn't trust Chiesa, he won't use him. He doesn't trust Rio, he won't use him. You've got Isak, he's injured. So you're down to 3 players. You're down to a badly out of form Cody Gakpo, a hope that Salah can come back and find his form, and Ekitike, who for me is the signing of the season, is one of the best strikers in the Premier League, probably one of the best strikers in Europe right about now. So to me, there's a real lack of depth. And I think that depth does need to be addressed in this window. And if it isn't addressed in this window, does that raise wider questions about where Liverpool are going this season? Does that say, well, actually, do you know what? They've kind of a little bit of given up on winning this season. They've given up on actually kind of, trying to be anything this season. Now, is this part of a wider narrative? Now, look, I'm not saying for a minute this is true, and I'm not saying this is definitely the case, but, there's a lot of talk at the moment, especially obviously with Xabi Alonso now being out of work, that Liverpool will part company with Arne Slot at the end of this season, and that he will be replaced, possibly now by Xabi Alonso. Although there is a worry that Spurs could move for Xabi Alonso, with Alonso seeing Spurs has been a very similar project to Bayer Leverkusen, which to me is a concern. Now, I've talked about, the whole situation with Xavi this morning on the video, where I said, basically all you fans out there that are saying Xabi Alonso would not be a good manager for Liverpool because Arne Slot's outclassed him twice. To me, that would be, that's, would be not a good appointment because Arne Slot's outclassed him twice. Well, as I made a point to you in that video, well, if we're going to use that argument, then Keith Andrews outthought, outplayed, outclassed Arne Slot. Should Keith Andrews be the manager? Sean Dyche has outplayed, outclassed Arne Slot this season. Should he be the Liverpool manager? Peter Bosz, the PSV Eindhoven manager, has done it twice now within 12 months. Should he be the Liverpool manager? So, that whole argument to me is a ridiculous, spurious, stupid argument. So, I think Xabi Alonso to me would be a very good fit for Liverpool. He plays a good style of football. He is a very, very good coach. He plays, aggressive football. He plays a better style of football than Arne Slot. So, to me, he will be a possibility. Now, like I said, getting back to what I was saying, the theory that I'm kind of putting across here is that Liverpool not spending in January and also not renewing Arne Slot's contract, is that sending a signal that all those stories that are doing the rounds at the moment, saying Slot will be gone in the summer, are kind of gathering a little bit of steam, because there's evidence there to suggest that it is the case. Evidence to suggest that Slot will be gone, because Liverpool are not spending. They're holding money back, obviously, for the summer when a new manager comes in. They're also not renewing his contract. Now, at the end of this season, Slot will have 12 months left on his deal. And as we know, managers with 12 months left on their deal don't tend to work very well with, because players tend to kind of stop listening to them, because they say, well, you know, you're probably not going to be here in a year's time. I am. So what's the point in listening to you? So there is a worry there, I think, you know, that maybe the case of why we're having this quiet January and why we're maybe not signing players is because there is a real truth to the rumour that Slot will be gone in the summer, that Slot will be either by mutual consent or will be sacked in the summer and replaced by Xavi Alonso. The other thing of waiting till the summer to do it is it will reduce the cost of sacking him and his backroom staff. So, you know, there's a lot of kind of rumour and counter rumour because of what is happening at this moment in time. And to me, it's a concern. It's a worry. I would honestly, you know, prefer us to at least put a little bit of money into this window, bring in a centre-back, bring in a winger, at least put a little bit of depth into that squad to give us an opportunity to at least challenge for the FA Cup and the Champions League going forward. It's a worry. It's a worry. You know, I don't know. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. You know, I wish some of you would comment and let me know what you think. You know, get your thoughts and comments in. Like I said to you, I do feel that this is kind of a situation that until we get out of the January transfer window, you know, until we get into a situation where we know for definite whether we're not going to sign anyone, that there's going to be continuing uncertainty around Slot, continuing uncertainty around the rest of the season, continuing uncertainty around buying players as well. You know, as I said, I don't particularly want to get into a Slot bashing session. You know, I really don't. But you know, at the end of the day, it is a real question that is being raised. You know, a real problem that needs to be addressed and isn't being addressed. I don't know. Like I said to you, I would love to know your thoughts on this. Do we need to sign people? Do we need to bring people in? Or do you think that this squad can get us through to the end of the season? You know, do you have faith in what Arne's saying, that, you know, Robbo can fill that role, that Endo can fill that role, that Grav can fill that role if needs be at centre-back? I personally don't think they can. I personally think that we do need to bring in a centre-back in this window, or else we could face a situation where we are really going to struggle down the line with a lack of depth to this squad, with a lack of depth defensively. And like I said, when your only kind of backup to Virgil and to Ibu is Joe Gomez, who isn't the most reliable due to fitness concerns, it's a massive concern. It's a massive worry. So there we go, guys. That's where we're at the moment. And look, I'd love to be able to bring you news that we're going to bring in player X and player Y, and it's all definitely going to happen. But no one knows. And nothing can be confirmed yet. And like I said, until we get through to February the 2nd and we know for definite whether or not, you know, that we are going to bring anybody in or not going to bring anybody in, we can't really sort of plan for the rest of the season, can they? It is a weird situation we're in at this moment in time. Guys, just a reminder, please obviously subscribe to the channel, like, comment, share. Just give the video a like. That would be fantastic if you could. We are aiming to grow the channel as much as is humanly possible over the next 12 months. It's tough going, guys. I'm not going to pretend to you it's not. You know, it's sometimes soul destroying doing this. You know, you bring out what you think is a good video and no fucker watches it. It's a bit soul destroying. You do live podcasts like this and no fucker comments. You know, so it is kind of a bit of a concern. So look, let's obviously keep growing, keep going together. That's it for this morning. Obviously, what I prefer is obviously more of you commenting. The more we comment, the more of a conversation we can have. As a podcaster, I am always someone who prefers to get everyone involved, to read out comments. I'm not like certain podcasts who completely disregard their audience and just think that and just sit there around their table, behind their desk, spouting forth, their drivel and spouting forth their brown nosed crap whilst they ignore what the live chat's saying. They're so full of their own self-importance. I'm not like that at all. So that's what I like to do to get you guys involved. Okay, thank you for watching, guys. We'll be back with a video very soon. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you